Everything Legit, the Nimmy Meta podcast.
Hey guys, welcome back to Everything Legit Season 3. This is episode 3 and I have loved all the comments from the previous episodes. I've loved you getting in touch and just hearing your opinions and what further topics that you would like me to talk about. I'd appreciate if you keep that coming, alright? At the Nimmy Meta on Instagram, whatever you'd like me to talk about in this season, it's open, it's free for all. This is your podcast as much as it is mine, so do send it through. This episode, we are talking about family, friends, and money. Dun, dun, dun. It is such an awkward topic, and I want to put a disclaimer out there right now. Family, friends, if you are watching this and you think I'm taking a personal thing at you, it is absolutely not, okay? This is just a topic which I know so many people go through and feel really awkward and uncomfortable about because there is such a taboo around even discussing it. So, obviously, let's discuss it on Everything Legit. Friends, family, money, lending money. That's what it's all about. It's about giving money to a friend, lending money to a family member because they need it. It is so uncomfortable. I'm cringing and irking just at the thought of it right now. But it's something that whether you've already come across it in your life and experienced it or it's yet to come, I feel like we all need to be mentally prepared for it. And on Everything Legit, I like to talk about subjects that make us feel a bit uncomfortable, but people don't talk about enough. So let's do it. I thought I would talk about my own personal experiences, but also situations that arise that, let's just say, how to handle it moving forward. So I have absolutely had situations where I've had friends ask me for money. And let's be honest, it's awkward for the person asking for money and it's awkward for the person who is being asked for the money. So it's not a win-win situation for anyone. I can only imagine it takes so much courage for someone to ask someone else for money, right? You have to drop your shame, your pride to ask someone or to tell someone that you're in need financially. It's really, really awkward because society doesn't really tend to talk deeply about their own personal financial standing. You know, we don't go to dinner with a friend and be like, oh, I have 250 dirhams in my bank account right now. And you don't have the friend telling you how much they have in their account because it's just not something we talk about. We all also socially know that it's not cool to talk about what your financial situation is because there are people that might be better off. There might be people that are worse off. It's just not something we discuss. And that's okay. I actually think that that's how it should remain. So we don't really know how our family and friends are doing. You see your friends, your family members working super, super hard, maybe working 2-3 jobs just to pay the bills. You don't know if they're doing well. You don't know if they're comfortable. You don't know if they're just about making ends meet. You don't know if they've extended their loan with the bank because they're struggling this year. You have no idea. So I think it's really, really important to be sensitive on that. Also, the world we live in right now, social media, especially here in Dubai, I have to say, people look like they are living the most extravagant life with luxury, and they might potentially not be in reality. It makes it look that way, right? So let's just think about all these elements. They are very much factors in what we are discussing today. That aside, I think what's really important, how do you turn something so emotional, which is your emotional connection with this friend or with this family member, into essentially what is a business transaction when you're lending money? It's uncomfortable for everyone involved. I luckily, and I am very blessed to say this, I've never been in a position where I've had to ask someone for money, right? Of course, I'm not gonna lie, I've been in situations like, Mum, Dad, lend me money. This was like when you're at university, when you're a student. Hey, can you send me money, Mum? I can't pay the rent. Whatever it may be when you were younger. As an adult, I've never had to do it, thank God. But I know there are people that have had to. So from a personal experience, I've never had to ask anyone for money. and I'm very lucky for that. But I have been in the position where people have asked me for money. I have never, ever, ever looked at a friend who's asked me for money and judged them for it, ever. And I think that's really, really important. Like I said before, you really don't know someone's situation, right? So I'm going to go through this because it's hard. There's such a blurred line between the emotional and the transaction of money, right? Whatever the relationship is, realistically, only someone super close to you would be comfortable enough to come to ask you for money. And only people that I'm comfortable with do I lend that money to, right? There's trust there. There's love there. There is also a sense of responsibility you feel, not on that person's life, but on making that person's life easier because you love them so much. So there's going to be two parts here. We're going to be flitting between the person who's lending the money and the person who's asking for the money throughout this episode. I Googled it, and there are certain stages and questions they said that you should ask, and by they, I mean just experts in finance and psychology, a checklist of questions you need to answer before you open your wallet and before you agree to lend money to someone. But before I get there, I want to make something very, very clear. When you decide to give money to someone and to lend money to someone, I noticed my dad doing this all throughout my childhood. I just remember my mum talking about it, my dad talking about it, friends that would call him up, because my dad essentially went from nothing. He was a refugee. He lived in a refugee camp in the UK when he moved from Africa. He had no money to his name. He built his way up to be running the business that he is now. And I'd like to say he's comfortable with God's blessings, and he's really, really worked for that. But throughout that journey, even when he didn't have much money, he would have friends coming to him asking him for money because they weren't as comfortable as him. And these were his bestest friends that he grew up with, right? Like, they literally, he tells me, lived out of each other's pockets when they were students. They would lend each other money. They would pay for each other's meals, just like in that student life that you would. Now, I never forget this in my dad's teachings, but he says to me, when a friend comes to ask you for money, you need to consider that that money is not yours anymore. When you lend your friend that money, do never, ever, ever expect it back. Never expect it back. That is a gift from you to your friend. Now, there is a writer called Mary C. Kelly. She's an author of a book called Money Smart. She says, there are no such things as loans among family and friends. They're gifts. They are a gift if you give or receive them, and they are a gift if you get paid back. So essentially, the notion around that is that, like my dad says, if you give money, don't expect it back. It is what it is. Accept it. And you have to be okay with that money never ever coming back to you. This leads me on to the checklist of questions. So if you do get asked by a friend, by a family member, if you can lend them some money, these are the questions you need to ask yourself. Has this person asked me for money in the past? Supposedly, this is a deciding factor. So they may still already owe you money from previous times. Again, they're saying that, and all the research that I did on this, that you need to take the emotion out of it. I don't think that's possible at all. You cannot take emotion out of an emotional relationship and connection that you have with someone. So I don't think even try to resist that. It is what it is. You love this person and you're going to try what you can to help them. But an element of, have they asked for money in the past and have they paid that back? How troubling was it to get that money back, etc., etc.? You have to ask yourself. Was I paid back promptly? Timeline is an issue here. When someone owes you money, I don't think there is such thing as a timeline unless you've agreed that by May the 25th I want my money back. I think you just assume that it will come back as and when it comes back. What are the funds to be used for? Now, a lot of people, I don't agree with these checklist of questions, by the way. These are not questions I even asked myself when I lent money to friends. I think they're ridiculous questions, but I'm saying them to you because experts say these are questions you should ask yourself. What are the funds to be used for? I'm not sure it's any of your business. And I know that's weird because I know it's going to be your money that they are using. But I would feel really, really uncomfortable to sit down with a friend and be like, okay, I'm going to lend you this money. I want to know exactly what it's going towards. In that sense, it's kind of like you're their boss, or like you're their financial manager, or you're their bank manager, and you're sitting there with them going through step by step exactly what they're going to spend their money on. I would hate that. I would personally hate that if a friend quizzed me and interrogated me on what I was going to spend that money on. I don't think it's fair. I think if you're going to lend a friend money, you do it wholeheartedly with trust and with knowing that they will spend it on what they need to spend it on. Consider gifting the money instead of loaning it. I'll give this article credit. It did suggest this because a recent study says 9 times out of 10, the friend will not pay you back. 9 times out of 10, the friend will not pay you back. Again, this goes back to the notion of what my dad says, which is when you give money, just never ever expect it to come back. Do I completely agree with never expecting it to come back? No. I think that anyone with integrity who had enough courage to ask for the money should have the courage to pay it back. But I think to save yourself the disappointment is don't have much expectation. Just consider in the back of your mind that amount written off. If it comes back, it's a bonus unless you've agreed other terms with your friends. Now, this is really interesting, so I want to read this out to you. A 2019 survey from the US Federal Reserve showed that when faced with a hypothetical expense of $400, a lot of people said that their second most common approach was to borrow it from a friend or family after considering put it on a credit card. So when people were asked $400 to spend it and they didn't have the money, where would they get it from? Their second option was family and friends, right? In a trusted confidant, a helping hand, someone that you know and will understand your situation. But the problem is, money and friendship doesn't really go. This comes into the whole factor of keeping up with the Joneses as well, by the way, because I know there is so many different social situations where people aren't on the same financial level. People aren't on the same social level. You walk into a restaurant, you see 10 people at the table. Guaranteed, those 10 people aren't in the same situation as each other, right? Again, it goes back to my notion of you really don't know someone's financial situation. You may think you do because of all the fancy pictures they post or the way that they're living life, but you really, really don't know. It's just awkward. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is because I've been going through a recent situation where I lent a friend money and they were in a sticky situation, right? They explained it to me, they broke it down to me, and they told me, like, I have this bills to pay, I only have this much in my account, I can do this and I can move this around, but this is the amount that I will need, right? And I was like, okay, that's completely fine. I will lend you the money. You need it right now, I will lend it to you. And I sent over the money, right? Instantly, without even a question. And then a few weeks later, they came back to me and they said they needed another amount because something else happened and then something else happened. And, you know, life does happen and these situations arise and I never even questioned them. However, I did sit and think, I haven't even got the first amount back and you're asking me for more. But again, I understood from their situation how much courage it took for them to ask me again. Also, I felt a sense of pride. It made me love them more that they trust me enough to come to me and I'm their go-to person that they feel so comfortable with to ask for money, right? Again, they explained their whole situation, why they need this amount of money. And then the second amount of money they wanted was a lot more than the first, right? And so when I calculated it, you know, when you're lending money, you don't lend money that puts you completely out of the pocket, that you're on the streets or there's a dent in your wallet that you won't be able to pay your bills, right? So I really had to sit there with myself and I had to think, okay, Nimi, if you lend this person this money, will you be okay? Will you survive? And the answer was yes. I can survive and I'll be absolutely fine. The only worry for me was a few conditions, right? Because when it comes to lending money, there's this awkwardness that you feel as a friend or family member to go and ask that person for your money back. It is so awkward. I, for one, never ever do it, right? Previously, when I've lent friends money, I've had great friends who instantly, as soon as they get paid, instantly I'll see that transfer back into my account without even speaking words. They'll do it, right? And I absolutely love that. I think that's responsible. I think that's also a signal of love and care for your friendship or your relationship. I'm so aware that in so many situations people do not pay their friends back, and it completely ruins the relationship. It literally physically creates a divide, right? And there was a psychological study done, which was said that most people, so when you lend someone, I'm going to say person A and person B, right? Person A lent person B $100. Person A happily lent that money to person B. However, person B psychologically and emotionally started to feel that then person A was superior to them, right? So it creates this kind of power struggle now where person A is a bit above person B. Not that person A feels it, but person B feels it because they feel in debt to them. They feel like they owe them. They feel like they are less than person A. And what that naturally does is create issues within the relationship. Of course it will. But here is where I come in, because I think communication is super, super important. Now, yes, you can get into physical contracts with the person that you owe money or they owe money. I don't like to do it that way, and I know that that would probably be the cleverest and easiest way to do it. But realistically, a close friend, you're not going to be like, here's a contract, sign it, here are the terms. You're not going to do that, are you? Because then they might as well have gone to the bank. They're doing this because they need some leeway in terms of repaying you. I think communication is really important. And I go back to the friend who asked me for money recently. And I said to them, before I lent the second amount of money, I said, I am more than happy to give you this money and I would love to help you out. I don't want you to feel stressed. If I can alleviate that stress, I absolutely will. But I only have one condition. And they said, okay, what's the one condition? And I said, please don't make me ask you for it. Please don't make me ask you for it. No matter what you do, no matter your financial situation, if at the end of the month you still can't pay me back in full, that's okay. Just tell me and communicate with me that, hey, Nimi, I can only pay you back this amount. I'll need the rest to do this. I'll need the rest. You need to communicate with me. Because what people, and you will know this if you experience lending money to friends, they avoid it. All of a sudden, they completely forget that you lent them money, right? You see them out, they're continuing life, and you're sitting there watching their socials or seeing them, and you're a bit like, okay, so you're out having the time of your life, spending money, but you're not paying the money back to me. So this is where the person who's lent money starts to get frustrated, which is why I think communication is super, super important. So I said that to my friend. I said, please never, ever make me ask for it. I don't want to chase you for it. I don't want to have to ask you like, hey, can you pay me back? It's so uncomfortable. It's not only a societal thing, by the way, but it's also culturally for me. Being from, of Indian heritage and being raised as a Hindu, just not even religion, but generally the culture that I was raised in, you don't ask for your money back. You give it in good faith and then you'll receive it back in good faith. I was lucky to grow up with friends who we never had to, say to each other, oh, you owe me £5 or you owe me £1. It never got like that because we all looked after each other. Sometimes one of us would even pay for the whole meal. Then the next time the other person would pay. It would be like that. But I know, especially here in the UAE, if you are in Dubai, it's a whole different situation because it's a mix of cultures and people have different approaches to different things. But just communicate. And I say this to the person who lends money, and I say this to the person who receives the money. Just communicate with that person. You avoiding the whole thing is making things even worse. So, as it stands, I haven't been paid back from my friend, and that's okay, because they actually communicated with me a week ago. I hadn't heard from them for a couple of months about the topic. We spoke about everything else in life, but I was sitting back waiting to see if they would, and they did. They communicated to say, by the way, I haven't forgotten that I owe you money. It's still a bit tight, so I will get back to you with whatever I can pay you when I can pay you it. I appreciated that piece of interaction and communication so much. I was like, oh, thank you. Because you start doubting the person, you start doubting the friendship, you start doubting everything. And I don't want it to be like that. Because every time you meet, a friend is there to have fun with, experience life with. You shouldn't be sitting thinking about something else in the back of your head. The thing other than that is that with money, we all work incredibly hard for it. It is absolutely your choice. You should never feel forced into lending someone money. You should give it wholeheartedly. And again, it comes back to the lack. You should have a low expectation. You should not expect to get that money back. So I'm going full circle now with all of these things. But just know, if money gets involved with a friendship or a relationship, it can change things. To this day, my dad has not been paid back at all from his friends. And he's just considered it, okay, it's a write-off, it's done, I did it for my friends, it's a gift. If you lend the money, it could ruin the relationship. If you don't lend the money, it could ruin the relationship. Because that person who is asking you for money is going to feel like you weren't there for them when they really, really needed you. So there's no winning either way, but you have to make a conscious decision. Go through your checklist of questions. Ensure there is solid communication between the two of you. If they start avoiding you, if they start not answering your calls, I personally think that friendship or that relationship was not strong in the first place. And you learn your lesson for the next time a friend asks you for money. It's hella awkward, okay? This is a subject there's no right or wrong. It's circumstantial to everyone's different situation. But I just thought I'd bring it up because it's absolutely fascinating to me. It's a societal taboo, right? And no matter what culture you're in, whatever relationships you're in, whatever country you're in, lending money is so awkward, but I kind of want to make it less awkward. If that communication is there, I'm hoping you'll be absolutely fine. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much for listening to it through and through. If you enjoyed it, do leave your comments, of course. Rate the podcast, share it with your family and friends. Maybe even share it with someone who owes you money. You never know. It might help. Either way, I hope you've enjoyed it. And of course, remember, the Dear Nimmy feature is well and truly alive. Whatever topic you want to talk about, bring it to me at the Nimmy Meta on Instagram. Something that you're going through. I want to kind of make it an agony aunt piece, but you know, just something that you feel like you're talking to your mate about. You can be absolutely anonymous, whether it's friendship related, relationship, job, ambition, life, family. I'm here for it, all right? So send me a DM at the Nimmy Meta. I would love to hear from you. I hope you've enjoyed the season so far. I have absolutely loved it. I'm trying to cover everything, so I'm glad you're rocking with me. Until next time, I'll see you then.